automatically go to live, but I think we are live now. So good morning. Hello out there.
Hi.
And here we are, all four of us together. I love it.
I think I'm going to have to get my green screen.
Huh?
I said, I think I'm going to have to get my green screen because my hands are...
That kind of happens, doesn't it? It's like, oh my gosh. All right, everybody. So we are on our new platform, trying a new one today. I always like to let y'all know that in case something looks different. The other thing is you will probably have to give new permission to Facebook in order for us to see your name. But you can leave us comments. And I think on your screen, when you try to do that, it'll tell you to click that little link they have there, which will then tell us that Susie's out there or Kathy's out there, or whoever's out there, instead of just Facebook user. So as we get started, this is awesome. This morning we have a special guest with us, EmmaLou Penrod. And EmmaLou, where are you located? We love to hear from everybody and where they are.
I'm in Utah. I have a beautiful view of the mountains off my front porch. Ben Lomond Peak is one of the tallest points around here, and I get to look at that every day.
Oh, sounds
beautiful.
Great. That's great. So you are, and also, are you in Mountain Time?
Yes, I'm in Mountain Time. So it's an hour later for me.
Oh, right. So it's 8:30 your time instead of 7:30 here. There we go. Okay. My mother's in Phoenix, and she never changes. So while I was at her house, we went to the same time as her. So now we're the same, because she stays Mountain Standard. She never goes to daylight. And then my sister is where you are. She's in right outside of Park City. So she's up there in Utah also. And we have our lovely co-host awesome here with Lisa Fredrickson this morning and Dr. Laura Christine. So we're always happy to see you. How you girls doing today?
Well,
great.
Trying to keep warm.
Are you in more snow again? Is it cold?
No, it's just a little bit chilly. It's supposed to be in the 60s today, finally. But
wow.
Well, that's in the 30s.
Guys.
So yes, the snow is almost all gone. So
yay.
We're happy about that.
And you want to get gone and warmed up so y'all can start planting your gardens.
Yes, getting ready to plow. I'm doing a community project. We've got an acre. I'm waiting for things to dry out so we can plow. So.
Like a real acre. I mean, that is a lot of land.
Yes, it is. Yes, I've never done it before, but we'll see what happens.
Oh, wow. That is great. And so that's a community. So you have help. You're not the only one doing it.
There's a couple of us. So I've never grown on this scale. So that's the intimidating part. But yeah, we had an acre donated to us, and we're going to go, great gangbusters and try and grow as much as we can. So
that is awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And Lisa, you have your garden started working on it?
Yeah, we just began. I mean, it's been cold, hot here, so it was not opportune for putting in some of the things. From what I understand from my fellow gardeners, they put their seedlings in and they've died. They're reseeding. Yep. So.
Yeah,
and that's work and money too to have to replant, right?
Well, I mean, I grow everything from seed, so it's not as bad, but yeah, it's more the effort and the
You get excited and then something happens and then it dies and then you get to try to do it again. You get excited.
Yeah. So I'm putting my garden in next week after I drop Belle off. So
okay, so she's here for another week?
She's here till Friday.
Oh, good. All right. So I did put a hello in the box just to make sure that the chat box is working. So now I think I asked you this, Lisa and EmmaLou, but y'all have met or y'all have had a chance to get to know each other or not yet? I know Laura has, but Lisa?
No, I haven't met EmmaLou other than just comments, but lovely to meet.
Good to meet you, Lisa.
So the really cool thing about this, and it was so cool because EmmaLou, when we were chatting before the broadcast started, was she said, this is a Christian group, right? So I can talk about how we really feel about things. And yes, That is the thing. We are all Christian women, and we talk from the heart, and we talk through our faith, and it's really, really nice to be able to do that, right? If somebody didn't like it, they wouldn't have to listen to us. So I guess that kind of changes things. So you know how I am about choices, and so the theme for this morning is it's all about family, and I know for all of us, family is you know God and family. That's the order that it comes, and then career and all that other stuff comes after that. But God and family are our main priorities. So, EmmaLou, tell us a little bit about you. Tell us about your family and that, just so we get to know you.
Well, thank you. I am excited to get to talk about something I'm passionate about. I have to share a story. When I was about 11 years old, I remember just seriously studying my parents and their relationship and just watching how they treated each other, how they talked to each other, how they talked about each other when the other one wasn't there. And I just saw this powerful example of respect and loyalty and trust. And I remember deciding I want a marriage like that. And then, of course, I also watched how they treated us and how I always knew they loved me. Even if they weren't happy with something I had done, I knew that they loved me. And I remember how that love sustained me and helped me reach my goals. So I got married, the man of my heart. It'll be 49 years in April.
Ooh, good.
We raised 7 children, and now we have 19 grandchildren.
Wow.
And then as my youngest approached school age, I had the blessing of having a time to be a full-time mother. And then I started a career as a school teacher, and I taught for 24 years. But as I retired, I knew I wanted to do something to support families. They're under attack. I think parents have a lot more challenges now than I did when I was raising my children. They really need support. I wanted to find a way to just give some encouragement. Parents can get a lot of criticism. As you mentioned, the family is ordained of God, and it's His plan. And yet we have forces in the world that would undermine it or even try to replace it. So I wanted to strengthen families. I believe that the foundation of our society, if we want to make a better world, let's start the foundation. So that's what I try to do. And I'm using my background as a teacher. I love teaching and sharing and encouraging. When you see a mother struggling with her little ones at the grocery store, so often she gets glares. Why not give her a smile of encouragement? My thought is, I remember it, honey. Just hang in there. Let's spread some love.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that. And I think what a great thing that you've taken your passion, you've turned it into your business, so that you actually have a chance to touch more families and help them through. And you certainly have plenty of experience with your own 7 children and grandchildren and being a teacher. You have so much to offer to families who are struggling. I would think in particular younger families who are just trying to make it, and I don't know what the statistics are. Lisa, this is something you might know, but I think back when we were growing up, the statistics, of divorced families, it wasn't half. It might have been 1 in 4. And now I think if it's not half, I know that it's at least half, if not more than half. And so there is, and so many, both parents are working, and that puts a different kind of strain on families too. Have you seen that?
Well, statistically, yeah, we've definitely increased. The exact numbers I'm not totally aware of, because it depends on what you're looking at in terms of how long, but I believe that we're close to 65% of all marriages to end in divorce. So
yeah, that proves the fact of what you said, EmmaLou, you know, that the family is under attack. And that, I believe that really is true.
And it is true, because it's not just divorce that is a defining factor. It's how we defined relationships, and there's more attacks on that even than just divorce. So there's definitions of who we are as children of God and what our roles are that are actually tearing apart relationships from a different foundation. And I believe that's even can be as dangerous, if not more.
So, like, for instance,
yeah,
so when you're talking about that,
gender definitions,
oh, gotcha, okay,
and or our role as men and women, and this is a personal opinion, so we'll put it out there as that, but defining us as equal, I think, is a definite negative. We're not, and like I said, this is a personal opinion, but we are not equal, nor do we need to be equal. God gave us each talents, and we should accentuate those and live in balance and support of each other. You know, so there's definitely many scriptures that need to be heeded, that we've set aside, that have to do with the fact that men and women were created by God, and that we have different things, that we're different. You know, that's all I guess the summation of it. And that
and I
difference
think that's more
is strength.
Yeah, I mean, and different is good. I mean, we all know that men and women are different. Now, the fact that the world's trying to tell us that we're all the same, and all the things that we have going on right now, with the fact, you know, now that we have, you know, men and women, you know, competing against each other, that whole thing with the, you know, men going into sports with their strength. I mean, their bodies, a man's body is different and put together. And I think the word equal is a hard one. So I think that probably can bring up some conversation here.
But I'd love to hear from EmmaLou on what she thinks too.
I see it as we have different roles, and those roles are complementary.
Yes.
And I agree with everything that Lisa was saying. There is some confusion about gender identity. I also just wanted to add that in my research, a study was done and published in the government, in their publication. You know, they did 30 years of research. What is the best setting for a child, for health, for physical health, mental health, emotional health, academic success? And after 30 years, surprise, surprise, they came up that the best setting is being raised by their married biological parents. And yet, only 60% of children under 18 live in that situation. So it's a critical issue. I also think there is a lot of, we're sending children confusing messages when we try to say there's, you know, more than two genders, and, you know, they may, I understand they're no longer putting male and female on birth certificates, and this is alarming. This is confusing for children, and even starting surgical procedures because a child feels like, well, actually, I feel more like, you know, and I'm seeing a lot of harm resulting from this. There needs to be that truth that I believe we're all equal in God's eyes. He loves all of us, male and female. But we have different roles, and it works beautifully, you know, as I mentioned, because my husband he took over breadwinner. He took over that role. And I was able to just focus on nurturing those precious children. And it was just a beautiful companionship. I loved it. I feel so blessed that I was able to do that. And I think that's how we strengthen families, is we complement each other. We're working together. We had a common goal. And that, to me, is working towards the truth of who we are and how we can do God's will.
Yeah, absolutely. Laura, you want to pop in here?
You know, I don't know what I can add other than I can agree with, I think families are under attack because of everything going on in the culture. And we, like EmmaLou has said, you know, we are designed a certain way. And I think a healthy version or a healthy view is knowing that men and women have different roles and that they complement each other, as opposed to nowadays, because of such dysfunction in the culture, women are stepping into that man's role because men aren't stepping up. And I think there's a lot of confusion because of everything that's been going on, which then that makes sense with what both Lisa and EmmaLou were saying with, you know, stats of divorce and EmmaLou's business with helping families, you know, get back to the truth. It's difficult and it's sad. It's very sad.
And Delinda, you know, because of divorce, we have different families. That by necessity there were different families. And so what we started saying was that okay, we have to live this way. We have to have these roles because of single moms and things like that. And like, you know, Laura was saying, fathers who were not stepping up. But what we were doing, or what we have been doing, is we've been settling. And in life, there's always good solutions. There's better solutions, and then there's best solutions. And to me, the family is the best solution. So when you're talking about people and they're like, well, I can't do this, I can't. Yes, we realize that there are good solutions that have to be applied to certain different circumstances. But the goal of the whole society has degraded into this, okay, well, if we have to do it, then this is the best solution, and we're defining the best solution erroneously. And in my opinion, not according to how God divined it.
Right.
For sure. And I think I would imagine, EmmaLou, that a lot of your business, because the truth, as we're saying, just based on everything that we're saying here, truth is there is a lot of divorce. There are also situations where families are torn apart. It could be, you know, a death in the family, where now we have one parent who's raising the family, a single mom or a single dad, and trying to support and love those families, because families just look different, you know, and sometimes, you know, you're able to, you know, adopt children in, and, you know, so whatever that family looks like, we have to start from where we are. But if we can begin to do things with more love and more respect, and like you said earlier, you know, the mom that's struggling in the grocery store. I was just on an airplane just this last weekend, and I really airports are a hard place, because that's always when the kids are not being good, because it's stressful. And man, the airport was so crowded, and you know, these little kids, and so same thing. I try to just nod at the moms, like, it's okay, you know, that's just part of it. You know, but there's always those that are giving, you know, these really hostile looks. And if we could support individually, all we can do is what we can do in our own sphere of influence, you know. But if we, as we go along in our day to day, can really look at how we can support the families, those that, you know, have gone through the trauma and the things that go on in their life, and just the stuff that, you know, when kids get about that middle school, teenage time, you know, that's hard. I mean, at least it was for me, you know. And you know, you love your kids and all that, but maybe learning better ways of communicating. What are some of the things that you see that you help with in the families?
You're breaking up there a little bit.
Oh, sorry about that. So, EmmaLou, did you get part of that?
You mentioned communication. That's huge. You also said something a little earlier about, you know, we refrain from judging. We don't judge other families. We just assume they're doing the best they can and offer support, especially in the case of the single parent. I advocate for community and extended family to jump in with, providing a male role model. And, if like the boy next door, the father observes that this friend doesn't have a dad, and maybe he could include him when he's doing something with his son, or just supporting them any way they can. And then you mentioned communication. That's huge. Listening is quite often overlooked and needs to be stressed. I think as parents, we want to make sure we're listening to our children, not only to what they say, but to what they don't say. So I think that's huge. I have just been loving all of this. So many words of wisdom here on how we can strengthen families and strengthen those relationships.
Well, and
that's part of what I cover too.
That's great.
And I was going to say, I think of the basics, like you're talking with strengthening family. My family, at least we try. I've got all kids are still home. So I've got 20 somethings still at home, but we always try to sit down for dinner. Even just that's a big communication piece, to sit at the dinner table and everybody participates with making the meal and, doing dishes and all of those horrible things, according to my children, because I don't know what happened from, train up a child and now they're arguing over who's going to do the dishes. But the basics, the basics, which are foundational. It's and I've said many a times, I'm sure you ladies have too, to your children. It's all hands on deck when we're all a family and we're all together. It's all hands on deck. We all participate like a family and function like a family together. So nobody gets away from not doing dishes.
How else are they going to learn, right?
Yeah,
exactly.
Well, and for those, this is where you, Delinda, you empower women through networking and through other things to create businesses from home. We can still I was an example of a mom who worked a lot from home in business that was actually happening in other countries around the world. So it was like, I still homeschooled my kids. I still did all those things that putting the family first. And then, but we had to have more income for some of the things that were going on in our family. So my family structure didn't look like everybody else's family structure, with the breadwinner being, only my husband. And what a blessing that EmmaLou had. But as women, with all the technology that we have such a great opportunity to run businesses or to work from home. And even now that what's happened, a lot of people are able to work from home with their kids. It's kind of exciting, some of the things that transpired. So
I agree. I think the pandemic, that whole time, these last 2 years, really gave families the opportunity to come back and have dinner together, to have meals together, because so often it's the, run to here, pick up the kids from school, or they get home and then you go to all these activities and you're grabbing fast food, or you pack up a lunch or a snack or whatever it is. And I just know there were many, many big percentage of families who were not having dinner together for whatever their reasons. Again, I'm not being critical, but I just know that was a fact. And I think one of the blessings, because there is always good that can come from bad, we all know that. God's the great redeemer, so he can redeem all of the stuff, even what's gone through with the pandemic. And the families, and some of them like to say like too much. So I've had every meal with, Bill and I, for the last 2 years, we've had more meals together, I think, than we had in the last 20 years, because he traveled all the time. It's like, whoa. Fortunately, he likes to cook, and so now he's doing most of the cooking, and I love it. So it's great. But that's one of those side benefits that, and I think a lot of them, that's why there's so much career change going on. And Lisa and I were talking about that the other night, is the fact that the statistics for women not wanting to go back to where they were, wanting to start new jobs, they weren't happy, or they aren't happy at what they're doing, and they're looking at making change. And I think this whole time at home and doing things differently, let them know there are different choices, and that's really a good thing. So we can, you know, if you really enjoy and want to be home with your family, then you just make a different choice of what kind of job you want to do, or what does that look like? How do you make that work? Because we can make those changes.
True. My daughter-in-law, I'm so excited. I was commuting like 40 miles every day to work. Her company, you know, through the pandemic thought, oh, our employees can work from home. So now she's still has her job and is able to be home. It's wonderful.
And is she happy about that? She likes
it? She's very happy about that.
Yeah. So my brother lives in Phoenix where my mother is, and he has 6 kids, and he has one that's in New York and one that's in Washington or Oregon, I guess. And he was just saying that she and her husband have just decided to move back to Phoenix. They were all raised there in Phoenix, and so he's excited. The 5th one's coming home now, and they neither one lost their job. Both of their jobs said, that's okay, go ahead and move. We'll just have you work virtual. Like, yay! So they made that choice to go back to their roots where their family was, because everybody's having babies. It's like they're all married now and having babies, and they want to be in that family area, which is very cool. And so it does. Virtual certainly opens up new opportunities or continuing, so people can be at home if what they want. And I think a lot of places are also doing, half and half. My daughter-in-law, they're now saying she's going back once a week to the office, because from a business standpoint, to keep their culture, if they're very strong in what their culture is in their business, they need to have people there together at some of the time. So they've decided, at least for now, to go back once a week, and the other days still work virtually. So there's lots of ways. Wouldn't you say, EmmaLou, when you're working with families, there's lots of ways to make things work?
Yes.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts on that? Ladies, a little quiet.
No, for our last little bit of time, I'd love to hear from EmmaLou. What's your sage advice about how we can help other women strengthen family?
I thank you. I love that. So one is your example, and being willing to offer some encouragement and some support. Sometimes just a smile. A mother's having a really stressful day, and just if someone makes eye contact and compliments her, what beautiful children. We thank, when we see anyone in uniform, we thank them for their service, or if we know they were in the military. But parents are raising our future generation. So why don't we thank them? Why don't we let them know we appreciate that they're raising a future generation? I think it's appropriate to give them some appreciation, some encouragement. Maybe, and mothers too, young mothers are so quick to see what they're doing wrong and beat themselves up for that. But maybe they need someone to point out what they're doing right. First, taking on this responsibility, being a mother. They should be commended for that, for doing their best. So I think the love, the appreciation, and be willing to offer some support. If you can, a neighbor. I was really touched with the story of the parents who had a medically fragile child. They didn't dare leave her with anyone. They hadn't had an evening out or a vacation in years, but a loving neighbor came to them and said, train me on how to care for your daughter so I can, relieve you at least for a few hours.
That's
Just
awesome.
offering that service is huge.
That is great. And you're right. I would think that you know, the caregivers in families often do not get that chance to even just, you know, go out a few hours, like you say, just to go out to lunch maybe, or to even go to the grocery store by yourself, you know, kind of thing is can be huge. So that was a great example of being able to reach out like that. I think too, a lot of single men and women who I've seen step up with their nieces and nephews and just love to, you know, they don't have children of their own either yet, or maybe they don't, and they won't. So they give that love and special attention to their nieces and nephews, or other children in their life. And those are other ways to be able to reach out and make a difference.
You're absolutely right. A
So
child
Laura,
can't have too many positive role models.
Absolutely. And nobody can have too much love, right?
Yep.
Laura, any last comments? We're up to the top of the hour again so fast.
You know, this has been great to hear, EmmaLou. I'm a very stick to the basics, stick to the foundation kind of person. So, you know, like the family dinners, and like she said, and I've done it too at Walmart, seeing the frustrated at the end of her rope mom with the screaming little kids, you know, and I'm like, thank you, God, I'm not in that stage anymore. Because I had many a times where I had people staring at me. Yeah. But it's the basics. And like you say, it is all about love and kindness and being positive around other people and meeting them where they're at. You know, you could have a frustrated mom, especially with kids that have been driving her crazy or whatever. You don't know their story, but just being kind instead of being offended if they're a little short-wicked. So
very true. That's true. Lisa, last comments from you.
I would say that so here, this is from my little learnaholic brain. Societies that degrade the family have been proven to basically dissolve out of history. And there are many examples of that, where they have changed the morale book according to mankind. And when they do that, they fall. And so I spread a warning, I guess, that we need to come back to some of the basics of the family and support it and grow it again. Just like Laura and her gardens, you know, you got to take care of it and nurture it. And that involves all kinds of things, both community, networking, Christian women examples, all of that kind of stuff. So
absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for that. And sometimes it's too late to get in. We might have to have this other conversation, but you know, when you hear in our society that they think that the government can do a better job than we do raising our own kids, it's like, okay, those are big red alerts, people. Be awake, pay attention, because when that happens, as that continues to grow, if that philosophy stays, we will be torn apart. We will dissolve, just like you were talking about, Lisa. And I think we have to be, again, I feel, you've heard me say this, so I'm kind of on a mission. I guess I'm just going to say it all the time, is the fact that, you know, I believe God's calling women to step up and to lead the way. To lead by example, show that love and kindness, and keep the family together, and the things, whatever we can do on a daily basis, is going to make a difference in the long run. If all of us women, all of us Christian women in particular, really just stepped up and made that a point to anything we can do to strengthen families, to keep those ties, we can make a difference, because God will use our efforts and multiply. So that's pretty exciting that we can do that. So
that will turn
well said.
Huh?
That will turn
well said.
Yes.
Sorry. Well, you guys, thank you so much for being here. We're a couple of minutes over. Nobody ever minds if we go a couple of minutes over. We have not had any comments today, so I'm not sure we're actually getting through.
I checked Facebook. You're there.
Okay, we're there. So maybe nobody. They're listening and not giving us any input. Of course, we didn't ask him a question, did we? So maybe that's it.
Well, we haven't had
a quick copy.
We haven't had anybody come on, so.
Yeah, so I don't know, but you know, it's going to be out there, and they'll be
Facebook
listening
didn't
later
notify.
on to all this great things. EmmaLou, thank you so much for being on.
Thank you.
You know,
Yeah,
I
it was
just
wonderful
love
having you.
networking, because I wouldn't have met any of these ladies. I wouldn't have met you in this last 2 months. It's only we've kind of only been connected about 2 months, I think. And so what a blessing that is. Thank you. And as I always like to close the show and to just remind everybody that life is not a matter of chance. It is a matter of choice. So choose to go out, strengthen your family, and see what you can do to help those others who might need a little encouragement. Thanks so much. See you next week. Bye, everybody. Take care.